Well, friends, welcome to this doozy of a project. I purchased this buffet for just $100 off of Facebook Marketplace, and honestly, I may have overpaid for it. I saw this ad for Wayfair, and I was determined to recreate something very similar. There's no maker's mark on this piece, but the style says that this is probably from somewhere between 1910 and 1930, so it's about 100 years old. They just don't make pieces like this anymore, so I'm really excited to bring this back to its former glory and hopefully give it a new life because, goodness, nobody really wants it in the condition it's in. So let's take stock of where we're at. Over here on the side, you can see that we've got some missing veneer and some loose veneer. And these gorgeous turned legs in the front. I'm really excited to restain those. And this hardware, I think it is so unique, and we do have all of it. And you can see over here on the other side, it's not in much better condition. We've got some really loose veneer and some missing. I'm not really sure yet what we're going to be able to keep wood and what we're going to have to paint. But first things first, we take the hardware off and we get this thing cleaned. I like to use Simple Green to clean all my projects. It does a really great job and it's non-toxic. All right, I'm gonna go change this water out. Ugh. The wood veneer on top of this piece was detached in this corner and along the front, so I used some Gorilla wood glue to reattach it. All right, I'm gonna just kind of wipe off some of the excess glue. I used some frog tape to hold the veneer down while the wood glue dried. Then I put these heavy tiles on top and let it all dry overnight. So the problem is if you try to just paint over this, some of it will swell and you'll end up with these like bubbles underneath your paint. So you want to try to like get off anything that is loose. I'm cutting it so that we don't accidentally like pull off some of the attached veneer as I'm removing some of the old loose stuff. We have some Bondo wood filler. It's got this in the can and then it comes with this cream hardener. And when you mix the two together, it creates a really strong filler. It also hardens very quickly, usually within 20 minutes. I'm actually mixing up quite a bit of it because we have a lot to fill. So another thing I really love about Bondo is that it is almost always undetectable under a paint finish. I've used a lot of other wood fillers that was just not the case. I would paint over it and I could always see where the repair was. Next, it was time to strip these beautiful turned legs on the front of this buffet. I used a new to me product called Greenies. It is a more non-toxic paint stripper, and since I'm often out here with my kids while I'm using this stuff, I like to use as much non-toxic stuff as I can. So after I brushed on a thin layer of that, I covered it with some plastic wrap and left it for about an hour. I was pretty happy with how the Greenies product worked. I felt like the finish and the stain came off pretty easily. So next I used the cleaner that came with the Greenies, and it really did a great job of just getting that last little bit of stain off. I sprayed it on and just scrubbed it off real quick with this brush, and you'll see it really did a great job of just helping that last little bit come off, and it also cleans off the Greenies stripper. Okay, so the first round of stripper is done. It was pretty easy. At this point, we're just gonna let this all dry. And then we're gonna need to sand this down just a little bit, get some more of, hopefully get some more of this dark stain off. I use these sanding contours to get into all the little nooks and crannies on these legs and get the rest of the stain off. This stain has been on there for 100 years, so it has soaked way down deep into the wood on these legs. And so I was pretty happy with how easily it was coming off with this little bit of sanding. And now I am going to clean up my giant mess with my DeWalt shop vac. This is one of my very favorite items in my garage. This top is just not in great condition, so I'm going to start sanding it and see what we can do with it. As I was sanding, I realized that this one spot was pretty badly water damaged, and so I sanded and sanded to get it smooth and ended up having to go through the veneer in order to get it flat again. And that only means one thing: this is now a paint project, which is just as well because this stain up here was also not coming out. And you better bet that means that the Bondo is coming back out. I mixed up another batch of this to fill in that area that I had busted through the veneer and to also seal up the stained area and some of the other nicks and dents that I saw on the top of this piece. Next, I got out my orbital sander to scuff sand the entire piece. This will allow the primer and paint to adhere a little bit better to the surface. It just kind of roughs it up a little bit. It also has the added bonus of really getting out some of the scratches and little dents and making things just look a little bit smoother. This is a foam interface pad. I just get them off of Amazon and I attach the sandpaper to it and then attach it to my orbital sander, and it helps me to be able to go over some of the curvatures without really grinding them down and deforming them with my sander. And this does a pretty good job. There are some other brands that I'm sure do a better job, but honestly, I think it does pretty good for the price. You'll see links to this and other items that I use in this video in the description. Now that the Bondo was dry, I used my sander to sand that all down smooth so that you wouldn't even be able to detect it once I got this top painted. Next, I decided to address these legs. I made a paint wash with Fusion Mineral Paints Algonquin. This is about 1 part paint to 3 or 4 parts water. I just brush it on and wipe it off. And my hope was that it was going to really brighten these up a little bit. There was still some dark veining from the old stain on there, but I was really not happy with how this turned out. It was just way too light. So I got out my Lily Moon Smoky Gel Stain in the color Old Fashioned, and I misted the legs with water, and I decided to test this other leg with the stain to see how it turned out. And to be honest, I wasn't super thrilled with the look on this side either. I felt like you could still see way too much of that really dark stain that had soaked deep into these legs. So in the end, I decided to combine the two methods. I paint washed the legs, wiped it off, and then I applied the Smoky Gel Stain on top of it, and I was really happy with the result. I am not super thrilled with how this stain looks under artificial light on this video, but guys, I promise you, in person and in natural light, this turned out really pretty, so hang in there. Refinishing furniture is not all fun and games. There's a lot of hand sanding involved, and that's what I had to do now. I had to sand down all the little details that I really couldn't get to with my orbital sander. I really like these sanding pads. I always keep them on hand in both 400 grit and 180 grit. And right now I'm using the 180 grit just to get into all these little areas that I need to scuff sand before I can prime and paint. I use the 400 grit one between coats of paint to smooth everything out. Oh look, the Bondo is back. I found some more areas that needed to be repaired on the drawers. So I mixed up some more Bondo and got that all filled in. I also took the opportunity to sand down the edges of the drawers and the outsides to make them look nicer again. These are those 180 grit sanding pads that I was talking about, and I just folded it in half, and it was the perfect thing to get into all these little grooves on the top of this drawer. I'm going to link these down in the description as well. Now it was time to wrap up the legs with some pre-taped plastic to protect them from paint. Looking back, I probably should have done this all a little differently. You'll see this doesn't quite turn out the way I hoped it would. I started with a can of bin shellac-based primer. I like to buy this in aerosol form just because it cannot be cleaned up with water, so it is a mess to put into a sprayer. So I just bought it in the aerosol form, I sprayed it on, and I hoped that would be enough to really seal the piece so that no wood tannins would leach up through, since I was planning to paint it a lighter color. Now, shellac also does a really great job of sealing a piece so that moisture can't get in. And you remember I busted through that veneer on top, so I really wanted to protect it. So that's another reason I chose to do this. While I waited for that to dry, I went inside and put the old hardware in a pot with some water and vinegar and set it to boil. Then I went and sanded down the entire piece real lightly with a 400 grit sanding pad. Then I opened up the can that I have of this Kills Restoration Primer. This is a water-based primer, but it does a great job of sealing the piece, and I can put it in my sprayer. So now that I had done the layer of shellac-based primer, I had hoped to do this one layer of Kills primer, and then I would be ready to paint. While I waited for that to dry, I went and took out the hardware and I scrubbed it with a toothbrush that I use specifically for this purpose. Look at that gross water. Ugh. And this is what it looked like afterwards. I was really happy with how it polished up. There was a ton of grain showing through the top, and I just really wasn't happy with it. So I grabbed my Bondo glazing and spot putty and decided to just coat the top with an entire layer of this. Well, After I had gotten about a third of the way across, I realized I was going to have to use the entire container on this. There was just so much. So I decided to pivot a bit. I grabbed my DAP premium wood filler and put it in a container with some water and made a paste. It was just a little bit thinner than its normal consistency, and then I just spread it over the top of the piece to fill in the wood grain, and it really did a great job. It did exactly what I needed it to do. Back at it with the hand sanding, I grabbed a sanding pad and I just sanded down the top. Then I got my paint sprayer back out and put another layer of the Kills Restoration Primer on the top. And I naively thought and hoped that this would be the last of the primer. I love this paint sprayer. It is really inexpensive and it works just as well as some of the more expensive ones I've tried. If you are wanting to try a paint sprayer and just see if it works for you without investing a lot, I'm going to have the link for this down in the description. It is, when I got it, it was less than $40. Well, I came out to the garage and was hoping that the last layer of primer I put on here last night would be ready to go, but this spot here on the top has started cracking. And this is just not good. This is way worse than it was yesterday, and I can feel the ridges. There's no help for it. The only solution is to sand everything back smooth and reseal it all. I was feeling a little fed up with everything, so I'm going to be honest, I did not get the next part filmed, but I sealed all of this once I was done with some Bondo again, and now here I am sanding that down. In order to seal this, I needed to use some more shellac-based primer, but I didn't want to get the aerosol version again, so I just bought it in the can and lined my paint tray with some foil so I could just throw it away and rolled it on with a microfiber roller. The consistency of this primer is really thin, so even rolling it on, it creates a really nice smooth candy coating over the top of whatever you're priming. So it worked really well. Okay, I got 2 layers of the bin shellac on there, rolled on there, and all looks good, except, let me see if you see that. You've got to be kidding me. This is so frustrating. I just want to be done with this one, guys. All right. After this piece, I need some quick wins. This bubble meant that some moisture had gotten under some loose veneer and it was bubbling up. And there was nothing really I could do except try to remove that piece of veneer. Some people say you can do things like use a syringe and try to inject some wood glue down into the bubble, or you can score the bubble and try to get some wood glue in that way. I knew that I was not going to have peace of mind with this top if I didn't remove the veneer that was the problem. So I went at it with my knife and got the Bondo out again. Guys, I think I put almost an entire can of Bondo on this piece. Can you believe this? But there was nothing for it. It just had to happen. The next day, after I had talked myself down from just throwing this thing into the burn pit, I came out, I sanded it down, and I put 2 more layers of the bin shellac-based primer. I think the top is finally sealed. I'm not seeing any problem spots. Alleluia. So we're gonna sand it up with some 400 grit sanding pads, and that'll kind of knock off any texture we see here and get this ready to paint. I decided to use Fusion Mineral Paint in the color Chateau. It is this really beautiful beigey, gray, white color. It is on the lighter end, but I would say it is a more modern white. I know that a lot of people are really into painting things black right now, and I like black too, but I do get a lot of requests for light things, and I think this is a great modern light color. I do add a little bit of water just so that it flows better through my paint sprayer. Make sure it's mixed up really well. And here we go. And because nothing can go right with this piece, of course, there is a spot here on the drawer that is not taking the paint. One of the things you gotta remember is, this is an antique piece, and it's been around for probably close to 90, 100 years. So we don't know what this could have been caused by, what this piece has come into contact with, what kind of oils or furniture polishes or solvents or anything that could have been spilled on here. Who knows what is going on in this spot. After sanding it, I sealed it with some shellac primer, and it was good. After all we had been through, I was so excited to finally see what these legs looked like next to the paint color. And guys, I was so pleasantly surprised. I hoped it would look good, but I couldn't believe just how good the colors looked together. I like to add these little glides to the bottom of my furniture just to protect them, protect the floor, and ultimately it's just a little detail that the buyers do notice. Next, my husband came and helped me try to figure out how to get these drawers sliding in a little bit easier. He really had some good ideas, and we were able to get them sliding in a little bit better. I used the sanding pads to clean up any overspray that I saw. Then I used some Howard's Feed and Wax to rehydrate the wood parts of this piece. It really also makes it all smell really nice again and just looks brand new. Next, I sprayed on 2 coats of Varathane's top coat in a satin sheen. I really love this wallpaper. I decided to use it as a liner in both of the drawers, both to protect the drawer and also to cover some of the stains that I just was not able to sand out. Peel and stick wallpaper is a really simple and easy thing that you can use to line your drawers, especially if they're not in great condition or maybe have some staining that you just want to cover up. Now, the top drawer actually came with this utensil tray, and it was lined in this really gross stained fabric. I got the fabric out, I sanded everything down, and I stained it with the same stain that I used for the bottom. That's Lily Moon's Smoky Gel Stain in the color Old Fashioned. Once it had dried, I put that same wallpaper on the bottom of it just to keep it protected and make it look fresh again. I really was just not happy with how this bottom drawer was fitting. It was scraping and not really going in and out very easily, so I took it out and decided to sand it to hopefully make it fit better. Let's be honest here, this is always going to be an antique piece and it's going to have some wonky character to it. But look how much easier this drawer is going in and out now. I can make a piece look pretty again, but if it's not working, if it's not functional, that's a big deal. I'm just so happy that I was able to make this piece function again. Next, I got my zebra brush out and I just used it to touch up the edges of the drawers. And finally, it is time to get this garage cleaned out and get this piece staged. This garage staging wall cost less than $100 to build, and I'm so happy that we did this. It works so well. I love being able to stage pieces to sell right where I work on them and never having to carry them into the house. I'll link the video to how we did this down below. And here she is. She's done. What do you guys think? Do you like the paint color choice? Do you think that I should have tried to keep it wood? I don't know how I would have done it, but what do you think? Is it okay that I painted it? I am really happy with how she turned out, and this sold within 24 hours of listing it for full price. I am really happy she found a new home and I was able to create the vision that I wanted with this. Comment down below and let me know what you think. And as always, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you want to see more.